$86 of new revenue to the city in 2022. The new construction has been included in the 22 preliminary budget. The city was also notified of available refund levy totaling $15,761, which is also included. So city staff recommends that the city council set the property taxes in 2022 at 100% of the 2021 revenue amount and take all new construction and available refunds allowed to the city.
All right, questions for Doug, and just to make it clear as well, in that kind of bulleted list of that, the city staff is not recommending that the council take the 1% increase. So any questions for Doug?
So I don't really have a question, but Doug, maybe you shared the levy rate. Could you share with the public what that is going to be for the city of Mount Vernon this year?
Sure.
You shared with us earlier, so.
I have a presentation of revenues.
Oh.
That, if I can just go through that, that's
Sure.
included in that.
Okay.
Okay.
I will do some slides now.
All right. As I mentioned earlier, that our revenue estimates have to be based on our revenue policies, and we have several policies. I'm only mentioning the top three here. That current revenues will be sufficient to support current expenditures. They're calculated using an objective analytical process and will be neither overly optimistic nor overly conservative. And estimates will be performed utilizing accepted analytical techniques and shall access the full spectrum of resources available to the finance city programs and services. So we do have many resources that we look at when we're reviewing these policies, which I talked about the past several weeks. We look at historical information and trends. We get a lot of input from management. MRSC has a revenue guide for Washington cities and towns, and a lot of those revenues, there's several revenues that are just, we're told by the state how much we will be receiving. And then the state also has an Economic and Revenue Forecast Council that sends out economic and revenue updates quarterly. That provides us with some estimates and what to look at for the upcoming year. And then we also look at input from other organizations, the counties, other cities nearby. The 2022 revenue estimates is $76,774. $76,774,548. This number is less by $56,000 from what was published in the preliminary budget because of the adjustment that we made for property tax. So we have taxes of $29.5 million, which is a $601,000 increase from the projected estimate from 2021. License and permits at $1.4 million. Intergovernmental services, which include funding for capital projects like our Freeway Drive, Cameron to College Way. Also, the EMS levy is now properly categorized as an intergovernmental service in this year instead of included in taxes. And that amount is $12,138,000. We have charges for services of $23.7 million, and that includes an estimate of $1.6 million for EMS transports. And then all the utility revenues are also included in that. Fines and forfeits for $152,000, miscellaneous for $5.9 million, and transfers between departments or funds by $3.8 million. So that's a total of $76,774,548. As far as the 2022 estimated total city taxes are $29.5 million. Property taxes are $8.2 million, which is a difference of about $105,000 from our 2021 estimate. The only thing that's included there is new constructions and refunds, as we talked about. We're not asking for any increase. Sales tax at $8.6 million, which is actually just a little under what we're expecting to receive this year. Public safety of $1,875,000. Criminal justice at $950,000. House Bill 1406, $65,029. And this is the affordable and supportive housing tax. This isn't actually a tax from the city. This is a revenue that we receive kind of like a rebate from the state that they send from their taxes collected back to us for the help for affordable and supportive housing. And then House Bill 1590, which is the Affordable Housing Sales and Use Tax. This is the 0.01 of 1% sales tax for affordable housing. We're estimating about $870,000 from that. Our transportation benefit districts, 1.9 million. Hotel motel is finally starting to pick up this year now after COVID. We're estimating about 230 next year. Utility and others at 4.5. Our local infrastructure financing tool of $500,000. Again, that's another like rebate from the state that we get back from them from their taxes that they collect. And then the real estate excise tax of $1.8 million. So going over the property tax levy, in 2021 we had assessed value of just over $4 billion. There was new construction of 41.9 million, which created a tax of $55,288, and we had bank capacity total of 744,000. Again, last year we did not use any of the bank capacity. Our total 2021 levy was $8,110,167, which was our levy rate was just a little over 1.99 per thousandth valuation. So this year, assessed value that we just received from the county is actually gone up 14%. So our assessed value is at $4.6 billion. There's new construction and refunds assessed value of 105. The 1% allowable was 81,102 that we did not take, so it's not included in our budget. And then that bank capacity of $778,000, we took zero of that. And then next year, that 1%, that 81,000, will get moved up into bank capacity. So our 2022 revenue levy amount is $8,215,714, which is our 2021 levy amount plus the new construction and refund. That will drop our levy rate to 1.7752 per $1,000 valuation. Just kind of showing some history here on that. As you can see, the past 10 years here, our levy rate in 2013 was 2.82. Our assessed value was 2.4 billion, and it continuously has dropped every year. And as our population increases, assessed values have been increasing. And I did add another column in there that just showed the assessed value percent change also per year. So there is, as you can see, a direct correlation there between that red line, which is the assessed value, and the levy rate, which is the orange columns, are going down. So as assessed values go up, our levy rates are going down. Any questions on anything to do with the levy? Okay. Our sales tax rate in Mount Vernon is currently right now at 8.7%. As you can see here, this is a breakdown of that 8.7%. 75% of it, or 6.5% of the 8.7, does belong to the state. The city is at 10% of that. So this is what's currently out there. Just kind of a refresher of what our sales tax rate is in Mount Vernon. Sales tax estimates for 2021, we're looking at about 8.7 million. I was projecting based off of what we just received again this month. That number is going to be over $8.8 million. This black line is where we currently are in 2021. So we're going to be about at $8.8 million. I'm projecting total revenues in 2021 at 8.6, just kind of leveling them off and estimating that based off the forecasts that we've been looking at and what we've been hearing, that things will not be really decreasing, but they will be leveling off. And then the graph here just kind of shows how that increase has been happening too. As far as our operating funds revenue, this is everything that's included in the general fund, streets, parks, and library funds. We're showing a total there of $36.9 million. I'm not going to go through all those. You can see in the pie chart here, 68% of that is taxes from property sales, public safety, criminal, and utility, and others. And again, that's just a breakdown, the same revenues we talked about already, but just the amounts that were included in the operating funds revenue. And then talk about a few other major revenues that we have. The blue line is the building related, as you can see in the past 10 years, how it's been pretty much staying pretty level. Revenues included in that include like building permits, impact fee, administration, engineering fees, plat app fees, zoning subdivision fees, and tech permit fees. We also have our real estate excise tax, which is the orange number, that we're projecting that number to hit $2.1 million this year, which was extremely higher than what we've been seeing lately in the previous 10 years. We're kind of leveling that one off at $1.8 million. Fuel and liquor excise tax has all been also leveling off here and staying pretty consistent. Liquor is one of those revenues that we've received from the Department of Revenue, and they tell us how much we're going to be receiving, so that's just a set amount from the state. So with that, the next steps would be a public hearing, and then if you choose to approve an ordinance setting the city's 2022 property tax levy amount.
All right, any questions for Doug before we do a public hearing? All right, with that, we'll open the public hearing regarding revenue setting for the 2022 property taxes. If there's anyone wishing to speak, you're welcome to step forward at this time.
Question,
Please.
is there a summary of total revenues in and estimated expenditures out, and is there a surplus, and what's happening with the surplus?
That's all in the preliminary budget that's published online. We're happy to get you a copy if you'd like.
Find it.
Yeah, we can point you to where you need to go on the city website. So, all right. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. All right. This would be ordinance 3838. Is there any questions for Doug or questions from council? All right. Entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 3838.
I'll make a motion that council adopt ordinance 3838, setting the city's 2022 property tax levy amount.
I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you. Motion by Melissa, second by Juan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you so much. All right. Councilmember Carvillas, you're needed in the back for just a few minutes, if you don't mind. Thank you. All right, we'll move along with item C. It's going to be the public hearing for the 2022 city budget. And I'm going to turn it over to Doug to kick us off.
Thank you, Mayor and council members again. The City of Mount Vernon is required to hold a public hearing to discuss the 2022 proposed budget. Following a public hearing and discussion of the proposed budget, City Council may then adopt the budget, which must be adopted prior to the beginning of the ensuing year. The attached preliminary document that we received with the mayor's submittal letter summarizes the detailed information council has in their 2022 budget binders. During discussion with City Council, there have been some adjustments to the preliminary budget document. These items include adjustments in budgeted revenues to reflect projected property tax revenues based on updated assessed values provided by Skagit County. This public hearing will include the updated budgeted numbers. The city budget as proposed consists of 41 funds and supports 244 full-time and approximately 45 part-time employees. The total 2022 proposed budget for the city of Mount Vernon is $76,705,623, which is a 1.3% increase compared to the 2021 budget. Total governmental operating fund budgets for 2022 total $39,291,463, which is a 9% increase compared to 2021. The preliminary budget will continue to be adjusted per council's direction prior to adoption. with a detailed list of these adjustments. The attached preliminary budget document has not been adjusted for any of those modifications.
Okay. Any questions for Doug so far? We were gonna run through a presentation for the public.
Okay?
You wanna kick off the first one?
Pardon me?
You wanna kick off the first slide?
Oh, sure.
And I have
So-
a copy of the draft budget for the folks here, so I'm gonna hand it to Peter.
Actually,
Yeah, oh.
so the preliminary budget, the goals and purpose of this budget is to make sure that we're meeting, that it's mission-driven, and we're doing all of our services, traditional services, in the most efficient manner. We follow the financial policies that I talked about, and we also follow all the fund and strategic goals that the city maintains.
So, get my slides in front of me so I can see it. Thanks, Doug. So when I just wanted to reflect a little bit, and I know the council's seen the slides when we first introduced the budget in committee, but really 2021's primary focus was just maintaining those basic services through COVID. We went through a significant amount of layoffs and furloughs for staff, just not sure what the economic situation would be. So 2022 is really the primary focus is recovery of those basic services, bringing staff back, getting those departments that lost folks back to the amount of staffing and able to then provide the services. So the budget process is that each department starts working on their budgets, usually in the month of August. That goes all the way to our frontline employee input. We do a zero-based budget, and we have departments propose budgets that meet those service goals and operational goals for the city. Then the mayor and directors and the finance director, we sit down and we have really detailed conversations about what has been presented, what they need, what type of problem solving went into the thought around the budget, and then adapting to the post-COVID world. Some things have changed, and we want to make sure that we're continuing to offer services in the most efficient way we can, from the way that folks have come to want more services, things like services online. And then we come to the council, we present the budget, and we have conversations. This is our 4th week of discussions, so we appreciate that. Next up, and this is something that I'd asked Doug to start when he came in as a finance director, is to really look at our total operating budget and what we would classify as non-discretionary and what we would define as discretionary. And so as you take a look at the intergovernmental budget, really 92.65% of the funds, the money that is spent, would be considered non-discretionary. Those are for our people, for our salaries, for other professional services, for things like the 911 bill, or the court services or auditor fees, things that are outside and contracts that we have to pay. So about 7.35% of your total budget for 2022 is discretionary, and that's about $2.4 million. All right. So presented to you tonight for the citywide budget is $76.7 million. But what folks usually talk about when you're out talking with our residents is about the operating budget. That's where the services come from. The rest of the funds, as you all know, is utility funds or capital projects. So our operating budget is $39.2 million. We did use some general fund balance to balance the budget that's presented to you this year, $1.5 million. But at the end of next year, on December 31st of 2022, we will have a 25.6% fund balance, which is the largest in 10 years that I can think of, and I'm not sure if we actually looked at how far back that went before we had that large of a fund balance. So. All right, go ahead, Doug.
All right. So as the mayor said, our proposed preliminary budget is $76.7 million. As you can see here in the left-hand chart here, our government operating funds is $39.2 million of that. Our capital funds are 7.5. Enterprise utilities are 18.9. Internal service funds are 2.5, and fiduciary is 770, and then special revenue is 7.7 million. From the governmental operating funds, you can see in the next slide, I'll show a little better here, the majority of this is made up for police and fire. And then I'm going to move on to the next slide here that kind of breaks that out a little more. So public safety and criminal justice is 61% of that. So police are 29% and fire are 25%. And then the other funds that we have here is the library is 4%, parks and enrichment is 6%, streets is 6%, and developmental services is 6%, and all the way down to city council, which is 1%. So on page 2 of the preliminary budget, I kind of broke this out. This is one page broken out into the next 2 slides. Again, it shows the 2021 adopted budget for, these are the total governmental operating funds, which include the general fund, streets, parks, and library. We're looking at about $36 million in the 2021 adopted budget, as opposed to 39.2 in 2022. And that's the 9.1% increase. Continuing this slide on are all the other.
Hold on, Doug, before you go on there. I just wanted to point out to council, so some people might go, oh my gosh, you guys have a 9% increase in your budget. But the 2021 budget, again, we laid off, a dozen people. We furloughed a lot of people, so it was a much smaller budget. So that's why it appears that it's bigger, but it really is kind of just getting us back to where we were, so.
Thank you, Mayor. So total, after all the different funds that we've been talking about, including the previous slide here, we are going up $1 million, or about 1.3% in total. As far as the 2022 revenue summary by type, again, total taxes, we're at $27.7 million. The budget in 2020 and 2021 was 27.2, and we're projecting 29.5 million in here. And as I talked about that earlier, the main reason are just the increases that we're seeing in sales tax and the House Bill 1590 affordable housing sales and use tax, and then this public safety $481,000. This public safety sales tax, whatever we receive, 100% of it goes back to the county in the support of our criminal justice center. So total, again, is 1.3% overall city budgets. And just again, another representation of our governmental operating funds by revenue source. I did take out the pass-through from the public safety on this. As you can see, our revenue, the majority is coming from property tax, sales tax, and then utility and other here at 12%. Intergovernmental revenue is at 11%, charges for services 14%, and just kind of gives a breakdown of where those funding sources are coming from. Also, I wanted to mention that in the intergovernmental funds right here also includes the American Rescue Plan Act funds that the city received of $4.5 million in 2021, and then again there's $4.5 million in 2022, and that's included in these numbers that we've been talking about.
So I'll take over here for a little bit. So when we look at the services that we want to provide to our city, I know that the council would want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to fulfill goals that we've all talked about. So this is just the visual representation of strategic goals that were adopted back in 2018. And then, of course, they're ending by the end of this year, so we'll have some more work to do on this. But just the main categories under our mission and vision of our city is that we want to provide a high level of quality public facilities in a fiscally prudent manner and their infrastructure. Healthy neighborhoods, to create an action plan to address the health of our neighborhoods, including public safety, public health, environment, and appearance. Maintain a good place for investment, that strong proactive position toward prosperity, to promote a vibrant business community, retain and recruit a talented workforce, a positive civic image, and establish the city as a good place for investment. And then under operations, we want to achieve efficiencies and professional services to meet our community's expectations through innovative management and governance. So we try and show just a few things that are included. It's not an exhaustive list in the budget of what we mean by that. So under infrastructure, we've got our modest general facilities maintenance continues. That Chris Phillips has put together, making sure we're investing in our buildings, making sure HVAC works when we need it for cooling centers, make sure there's heat that works in the winter. Our Mount Vernon Library Commons project is a huge economic investment in our infrastructure. Council has been so supportive of our fire station renovation projects, and we get to see that start this year, actually hammer swinging and stuff like that. And then our transportation, our Freeway Drive project, Riverside Drive project, Hogan-LaVenture transportation projects that Bill Bullock talked about. Under healthy neighborhoods, what you'll find coming for 2022, hopefully, fingers crossed with funding, is our LEAD program, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, and so more of that next Wednesday, November 3rd, where police will be presenting that program to you. We also have opportunities with the new House bills that are coming through with some tax revenue to really talk through how council would like to invest in housing. And then the new Housing Action Work Plan for adoption into the 22 GMA docket, and again, that kind of that conversation will start next month under the leadership of Councilmember Beamer. So a good place for investment. Again, that Mount Vernon Library Commons project, that's an economic driver. Tourism promotion area, we're excited to be involved in the leadership of that county effort. Our city fiber optic system expansion planning for next year to see if we can branch out into more residential areas. Our class and compensation study implementation for city employees, and of course, trying to help our communications get information out of biannual magazine. And under operations, we're continuing our significant technological upgrades for things that are working internally, especially online. Shift in service delivery, learning our post-COVID lessons, and then police reform impacts, something that will, I think, impact us as we move through 2022 and figure out the proper way to implement the legislator's intent. All right, but Doug, go ahead.
All right, so what's included in this budget? Property tax, only the new construction of $89,786. It assumes a sales tax just under the 2021 actuals, like I talked about already. This budget also includes American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funding. We have revenues of $4.5 million in the budget and expenditures of $1.8 million, so the rest of it will go in a reserve. We have until the end of 2024 to commit and the end of 2026 to spend those funds. We have two new funds in there, the House Bill 1590, which is the, we've estimated $870,000. That's the affordable housing sales and use tax. And then the House Bill 1406, which I talked about earlier too, that's from the rebate that the state provides us at that House bill. And then the ladder truck replacement of $1.4 million. And that's coming out of the fire capital fund. So also just kind of looking at some of the things that we see increases of what we have in here. Software maintenance charges that we have for 2021, and there's about an $80,000 increase in 2022. Fuel, we're looking at about a $31,000 increase. Professional services for Spillman contract for the police department is about $18,000. Our public defense contract about $18.8 thousand. Liability insurance is going up $70,000. Included in the budget, this was part of the CIP that Chief Kamek talked about, was the police body cameras of $114,875. And then we have a salary contingency that will be at the discretion of the mayor and council on how we're going to handle that, just based off to set the labor contracts and the salary comp and study results. Currently, the budget includes a 2.5% COLA. What's unfunded, the fire station infrastructure project. There's options exist, but we're not going to do any budgeting with that until the design is completed and the bids are received for that. As well as the Mount Vernon Library Commons construction. We're not going to budget that either until the design is complete and City Council's decision to bid and construct. And as the mayor talked about earlier, the LEAD program, Law Enforcement Assistance Division, Diversion, excuse me, or the Integrated Outreach Services, the IOS. We're kind of going to wait to see the start of the program is going to be dependent on outside funding. So we'll have to, that's not included in this, we'll have to do a budget amendment once we realize what that is going to entail. Personnel, we are asking for 4 new FTE requests. One is for a city prosecutor, and that is mainly to help with the backlog that we have with all the COVID. When COVID was up and everything was down for the city prosecutor. The human resource analyst position, and this is to help with, right now Human Resources has 2 FTE, and with all the changes and the 244 employees that we have and looking for safety coordination and stuff like that, they'll be using for that position. These 2 positions are going to be funded through the ARP monies. We're also looking for a public safety tech 2 position. This is for in the IS department to be helping with all the IS infrastructure and tools and equipment and software that public safety has. And then we're requesting a full-time parking enforcement position. This position right now is 75% position, part-timer, and it's just to make it a full-time position to help with enforcement with the downtown parking area, et cetera. We talked earlier a little bit about some of the policies, and one of the fiscal policies that we have is our reserve policies that we must maintain. Our reserve policy for the general fund is 15% fund reserve, and we're looking at this budget at coming in, the preliminary budget at 25.6%. Parks, library, and streets, our reserve is 10%, and currently we're going to be, this budget is leaves them at 16, 15.6, and 19.4%. So we are within our, meeting all of our reserve policies. There's also some challenges that the city has when they're doing their budgeting, and just some consideration is, again, earlier the mayor talked about discretionary versus non-discretionary. And one of the things is our total taxes, and again, this is for the governmental funds. We have total taxes of $22.3 million. And just total salaries and benefits of employees to manage everything in the operations is $26.2 million. So we have to look for other funding sources to cover that, and it's just a challenge that the city has to maintain to make sure that we can cover our all of our discretionary funding that we have. I already talked about this. Our levy rate is decreasing. Our bank capacity is $778,000. We did not include any of that in the 22 budget. The implicit price deflator, the IPD, is at 3.86 this year, so we would be allowed a full 1% of $81,102, and we did not include that increase in the levy rates. So just mentioning again here, the historic low rates we have right now, we're projected at, we have assessed value of $4.6 billion. Our total levy amount is going to be $8,215,000, which is just the 21 plus the new construction. And our new levy rate will drop from 1.991 to 1.775 per $1,000 of valuation. And again, you've already seen this slide, so I won't waste any time there. And so the next steps would just be a public hearing, and then council can talk about any final budget adjustments, and then if you choose, the adoption of the 2022 budget.
All right, thank you, Doug. Any questions for Doug before we open public hearing? Okay, great. With that, we'll open the public hearing on the city's 2022 city budget. If there's anyone that would like to speak, you're welcome to step to the podium at this time. All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on the 2022 city budget. All right, questions for Doug. Council, I know we talked about a few things in our committee, so
So I guess I'd ask Doug, can you bring up the little chart that changes our fund balance and adds and subtracts? There you go.
There we go.
So it looks like you've already done it.
No, we'll discuss these
My
now.
360's in there, we're good.
So, one
So
thing
for
that
me, the only adjustment that I'd like to see made, and I think we've discussed this in committee, is in prior years, our ER&R fund, which is our equipment replacement fund, that gets robbed sometimes when we have a shortfall in the budget, so we don't fully fund that. We're set pretty well this year, and I think it's an opportunity this year to make that fund whole again, and you gave us a number of $360,000. So I'd like to take $360,000 of what was gonna go into fund balance and fully fund that ER&R, so that when we come up to replace police cars or a truck for parks or a lawnmower or whatever, we actually have the money there to pay cash for it, rather than having to try to find it in the general fund. So I'd like to make that adjustment, which you've got here.
Is that a consensus from the council that we'd like to add that in this year? Okay. All right, great,
Okay, I'll put that in.
thank you. The next item?
It's my turn.
Okay.
I would like to look at using $5,000 towards the need that the Oasis Teen Shelter has requested for our homeless teens in our community.
All right, is that okay with the council? Is that an agreement with the council that that change?
Okay, just, we can come back to this. So with those two adjustments, let's see here. There's the $360,000 for the ER&R for city streets, and then $5,000 for the Oasis. Are there any other adjustments up or down that anybody
So the
has?
only other question I have, Doug, is there was a request from Friendship House. Did we include their full request in the city council budget, or did we ever make a final decision on that?
I believe we put in their full amount
The
that
5,000?
they requested.
Okay.
I'm just gonna double check, because I think we did.
We discussed it, I didn't think we'd ever,
I should have my book with me.
We did, we added, it went from 3,500 to 5,000.
okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Doug? Or
So I would say that this budget has been rather interesting to go through. Back in 2020, the mayor, her staff, and council worked together to decrease expenses and project lower revenues with the uncertainty of COVID. In 2021, we took the same approach. We didn't raise our budget. We didn't raise projections for revenues, which left us some unbudgeted revenues. It also kept our costs very low, so it made this budgeting process much easier. We were able to go back to basically a sense of normality with city. So the public, what the benefit to the public is they're going to see mowed parks, green parks. They're going to see a lot more activity throughout the city activities, and just a much better place to enjoy recreational time and to do business. So I think the council, especially the mayor and their staff, but also council working together with them, has done a great job with this budget. Our fund balance is going to be strong. And with that, I would like to move the adoption of the 2022 budget.
All right,
I will second that.
okay. Would that be
That's with these adjustments.
with the adjustments, and Mark, do you mind stating ordinance 3839?
38,
All right, thank you. All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
You know, I've been on council for 12 years, and I've never been associated with a budget like this. Like Mark says, last year, I thought things were gonna be so dire, and it was, the fact that we had to cut people's jobs but it did, for the city of Mount Vernon, we did kind of push the reset button, and I think we coming up with the different efficient ways to get things done, and to say that we would have an $8 million fund balance coming out of COVID. I mean, obviously, we did have our ARPA grants funds, which, you know, we've been able to put to great use, and but I agree with Mark on, you know, just the staff and Doug, you've done a great job, and we don't have to raise taxes, which, I mean, that's always a nice budget when you don't have to do that. So thanks for your guys's, and also just all the department heads too, coming in with they made it pretty easy this year. And I've never been associated with a budget that we passed in October, ever. So I'm all about seconding it, just like Mary.
All right. You have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge, it's been mentioned a couple times here tonight, but we did lose over 20 staff through furloughs and retirements and loss of positions. And, you know, those were our friends, our community members. And so it's important to me to acknowledge that it was tough. It was really hard. And then, you know, we also lost a number of services, and so that was hard on our community. Yay, our library services are finally back up and looking much, much better, and so that is wonderful. And I do want to take just 2 seconds to thank the mayor and her staff for making this a pretty unbelievable budget. You had me at over 25% fund balance, so, and no taxes. And so, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we have a motion and a second for adoption of ordinance 3839. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So thank you very much, council, for the support, and thank you, directors, for being here and your hard work, too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a big deal.
Thank you. No, you that is a big deal. All right. Moving on with our agenda tonight. Those are the big three out there first. All right. Item D is an approval of a resolution. It's for the 2021 surplus equipment. Gary Owens is here. He's our equipment maintenance manager, and he will be presenting the item to council. Gary.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Staff is recommending the council approve a resolution for the surplus of vehicles and equipment. We, the staff, have determined that certain vehicles and equipment have exceeded the lifespan and are no longer usable or needed by any other of the city departments. We have 15 pieces of equipment on your list. These vehicles are 4 vehicles from police, Chevy Impala, Ford van, 1991 armored truck, and an 03 Astro van. This Astro van was in a rollover accident and it was totaled earlier this year. Fire has 2 med units, 1993 Ford 350 and a 2006 International. Streets has 4 pieces of equipment, John Deere loader, an asphalt grinder, 1990 Chevy 1-ton truck, and a street line paint sprayer. Surface Water has a 40 kW generator. This generator was removed from the Culshan pump station, and we updated it, retrofitted it last month. So, Parks has 2 vehicles, Chevy Astro van and an old military trailer. Solid Waste has a Ford tractor, an 01 45 horse. Staff is requesting council to approve this resolution authorizing the surplus of 15 pieces of equipment to be sold at auction.
All right. Questions for Gary on these items? All right. This would require a resolution. It would be resolution 1001.
I'll make a motion that council approve resolution 1001, authorizing the surplus of city vehicles and equipment to be sold at auction or disposed of as scrap.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Melissa and a second by Lon. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Council.
Gary, for being here. All right, item E tonight is an approval of an agreement with the City of Burlington. And Peter Donovan, our Project Development Manager, is here for this one. Peter.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello again, Council. The cities of Mount Vernon and Burlington have contracted together for the past 5 years to provide public defense services. One of the enhancements to the city's public defense services has been the employment of a public defense program assistant. The public defense assistant service serves as the liaison between clients, indigent defense counsel, and service providers, the city program administrators, as well as social service agencies. The agreement before you tonight would renew the existing interlocal agreement for continued services while bringing the salary range commensurate with 2021 salary schedule standards. Staff is recommending a motion to authorize the mayor to enter into this interlocal agreement with the City of Burlington for public defense program assistance services.
All right, questions for Peter on this item? All right,
I'll move that we I'll move that we approve the agreement with the City of Burlington.
Second.
motion by Mary and a second by Mark. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item F tonight is an approval with the, approval of an agreement with the Mount Vernon Downtown Association, and Peter's here for this one. Peter.
Thank you, Mayor. In last year's CDBG action plan, City Council approved and the City of Mount Vernon allocated $12,500 in federal CDBG funding to the Mount Vernon Downtown Association for the purpose of helping our local small businesses in the downtown area. Mount Vernon Downtown Association was tasked with leveraging the CDBG funds to recruit, support, and train CDBG eligible business owners and provide resources for those businesses such as rental assistance, broadband connection, and other business support. Staff is recommending council approval of this CDBG agreement, which would authorize the mayor to enter into the agreement with Mount Vernon Downtown Association for microenterprise support.
All right, questions for Peter on this particular item?
Hearing no questions,
Thank you.
hearing no questions, that motion for the mayor to enter into the CDBG funding with the Mount Vernon Downtown Association.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Juan and a second by Iris. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, Peter's still up here. Item F is the approval of an agreement, approval of a resolution with Catholic Housing Services funding. Go ahead, Peter.
He just doesn't go away. Thank you, Mayor. Last year, City Council directed staff to work on an agreement that would dedicate the city's House Bill 1406 funding toward the operations of a new 70-unit permanent supportive housing project being developed by Catholic Community Services in Mount Vernon. A letter of funding intent was sent to Catholic Community Services following that direction, and an estimated $64,000 annually was pledged to help fund the operations of the permanent supportive housing program. Recently, Catholic Housing Services has received a permit to construct the project at 1925 East College Way. I'm told that construction mobilization is set to begin there on Monday, November 1st. City Council has considered the income of individuals and families to be served, the leveraging of the resources made available, and the housing needs within the city's jurisdiction, and has preliminarily decided that the provision of operations and maintenance services at the permanent supportive housing site qualifies for the use of this affordable housing sales tax funding. And with those considerations, staff is recommending that council adopt a resolution this evening in support of Catholic Community Services of Skagit County's permanent supportive housing project through the allocation of affordable and supportive housing sales and use tax funds.
So just a couple other things on this one. The city's been in close contact with Catholic Housing, not only through the permit process, but just supporting that administration of the project itself. And they were very grateful to receive the letter back in October of 2020 for this funding. They did come back to the city when their underwriters decided they'd like a little more formal action than a letter. So that's why there is a resolution before you tonight. It's kind of a repeat action, but it was at their request. So I just want to make sure that you knew that.
I think this is an important project for the most vulnerable in our community, and it's a project that we've entered into with not only Community Catholic Services, but with Skagit County. And this is just, again, as the mayor said, just kind of formalizing what we've already committed to. So I'd like to move the adoption of resolution 1002.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion by Mark and a second by Melissa. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. All right, item H tonight is the approval of an agreement with Skagit County, and this is brought to us by our Finance Director, Doug Pulaski. Doug.
I can think of something worse than seeing Peter up here again. All right, so tonight I bring forward a motion to approve the Fourth Amendment to the Jail Facility Use Agreement with Skagit County. In July of 2013, the council approved the jail facility use agreement with Skagit County in the cities of Mount Vernon, Anacortes, Burlington, and Sedro-Woolley. This agreement laid out the framework of a use and financing agreement for the construction and operation of the new Skagit County jail facility. Since then, the parties to this agreement have had discussions about the timing of additional payments to the jail fund in the event there is a shortfall that causes the revenue stabilization account to fall below the minimum funding threshold, or basically which is the fund reserve that they require at $3.9 million. The original agreement sets a schedule for payments that has large fluctuations from year to year and could cause the jail fund to have an inadequate amount of cash for operations. The parties agreed that shortening the time between knowing the projected shortfall and funding is proportionately and funding it proportionately would avoid fluctuations caused by the original payment schedule. The primary aim for this change is to reduce the years in which the revenue stabilization account falls below the reserve threshold and smooths the amount of additional financial consideration for all parties. So this amendment will adjust the timing and communication of required additional payments by the jail partner cities to better fit with both the cities and the county's budgets and cash flow needs. So staff recommends that City Council authorize the mayor to enter into this amendment to the jail facility use agreement with Skagit County.
Questions for Doug on this item? All right.
Hearing no questions, I have a motion for City Council to authorize the mayor to enter into the Fourth Amendment to the jail facility use agreement with Skagit County in the cities of Mount Vernon, Anacortes, Burlington, and Sedro-Woolley.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Juan and a second by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Item I tonight is the approval of an agreement with Burke and Associates, and Chris Phillips is going to make his way up for presenting this particular item.
Doug was talking about me. Well, good evening, council. City staff recommends City Council authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with Burke to complete an update to the 2006 Hovey study. In an introduction and background here, the study itself will update employment trends utilized back from 2006 to current, the job forecasting, land demand projections, as well as analysis of optimum balance between jobs and residents. The other two items that were included in here were directed by council, which are on the effects and recommendations of and/or for residential uses that include horizontal and vertical mixed use, infill townhome, duplex, triplex, and other multifamily residential options within the general commercial zone, which is C2, and limited industrial zone, CL zoning, which is basically College Way, Riverside, South Mount Vernon, to put it in other way. And then recommendations on quality and distribution of residential, commercial, industrial, and public zoning districts throughout the city. So this goes hand in glove with what Councilmember Beaton will be leading here over the next few weeks as it relates to the Housing Action Plan. City staff received 3 bids for this project, and after grading the submittal, city staff recommends Burke and Associates to complete this extremely important study. City staff strongly recommends City Council authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with Burke and Associates for $69,000.
All right, questions for Chris on this particular item?
I have a couple.
Sure.
So there's an optional task Chris, in the scope of work for a post-COVID market evaluation, it appears that that's included in this.
Correct.
That's great, thank you.
Mhm.
And let's see, second, there's quite a bit of discussion about general commercial zoning in here. Will we have the flexibility to also think about and hear about other commercial zones like C1 and C3 and C4 zones in this process? And we could follow up on this afterwards too, but not to put you on the spot or anything here. But it is important because I think one of the things I'd like to hear is what the potential impacts would be of removing the conditional use permit process for, what's the right word, mixed use housing in those zones. It's something that council's talked about. So I'll just end with looking at the way that the scope is written. It's not real clear how much time we'll be able to spend with the consultant as council, but I know staff and the mayor is committed to that. And so just ask the mayor and staff to really think about how to incorporate a good, thorough discussion with the council as we develop this process and get the draft reports written and work with the community to kind of understand all the options in front of us.
Sure. I mean, I would just offer it up to other council.
I'd make a motion to enter an agreement with Burke for $69,000.
Second.
Motion by Gary and a second by Melissa. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks very much. All right, item J tonight, the approval of an agreement with Woodcraft Wood Flooring. Jennifer Berner, our Parks and Enrichment Services Director, is here for this item. Jennifer.
Good evening again. So staff is requesting council to enter into an agreement with Woodcraft Wood Flooring to refinish the wood floor at Hillcrest Lodge. So this particular project, the wood floor has not been refinished there for over 16 years. So it's in dire need of getting refinished. This is part of kind of trying to refurbish all of our spaces before we open them to the public. And when we were doing our assessment, it was very clear that this was something that needed to get done, long overdue. So staff is requesting council to approve the mayor enter an agreement with Woodcraft Flooring for refinishing the floor at Hillcrest Lodge.
All right, questions for Jennifer?
Any
on this?
questions?
I'd move that we authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with Woodcraft Wood Flooring.
Second.
All right, motion by Mary and a second by Iris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jennifer. That'll be nice to see that when that's done. All right, item K tonight is an approval of agreements with Skagit County Dyke District 3. Our city attorney, Kevin Rogerson, is here for this item. Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. Before you are 3 agreements. This is a product of some lengthy negotiations with Dyke District 3. As you're very well aware, we've completed what's known as the Downtown Flood Project, which was a culmination of a lot of efforts between not only the city of Mount Vernon, but a special purpose district, Dyke District 3, whose jurisdiction includes the benefited area in which that project, once created, removed from the floodplain when FEMA gave us what's known as a letter of map revision. So Dyke District 3 was an integral partner in not only owning property that we built the structures on, but as a financial contributor. The deal that was originally struck for many years in which they provided funding was at the end of the project, we would take a close look at what project elements were flood related, hand that off to the Dyke District who would maintain ownership with a right of reversion should they fail to meet their duties of maintaining that in a manner which kept us out of the floodplain and we could take back that property. And in addition, we would look at those other elements which may have some flood elements overlapping, but also other elements such as we have a nice riverfront plaza, we have public trails, and we have nice aesthetic elements to the design in areas that are located near the urban infrastructure, which is your highly visible downtown area. So once the city received a letter of map revision that triggered under our underlying agreements that contributed the money towards finalizing the project for us to take a look at what we would do in terms of coming up with a legal description and an easement description of what rights we would convey to the Dike District and which rights we would retain. That is before you after lengthy surveying and title work. The Dike District already had some of that property, so there was no need to convey it. Other property we needed to convey. Another property, such as the ringed part of the dike around our sewer plant, really didn't serve any public benefit, but it only protected us as a sewer plant, so we decided not to convey that. So that is before you. In addition, there was discussion as to how to properly maintain, repair, and operate this flood structure. As we're well aware, this is not a passive structure, but an active structure that in the event of a flood, we mobilize, and frankly, much easier than we had to do in the past to rely on thousands or hundreds of volunteers to sandbag. It just took city employees to put up bracing and what we call stop logs, which are not logs, but metal gates to close those gaps that you see today. The Dike District doesn't have the employees, the experience, the storage, or the sites for that. We do, so we had entertained that it makes the most efficient use of both government resources for the city to maintain that. But since Dike District is the taxing jurisdiction for such benefits, they would pay for actual costs. So that's another agreement before you tonight. And my favorite agreement, which is further funding. The city was still expending tremendous amount of revenues and incurring costs as a direct result of the project. And the district has agreed to contribute $2.189 million to be paid at the annual installments set forth in the agreement to assist in our budget hits to close out the project. So before you, you have three agreements: an agreement for flood protection services, which is the agreement between the city and Dike District 3, in which the city stipulates that it will continue to maintain, repair, and perform routine operations of the flood improvement elements of the project as it is currently providing, and we're reimbursed annually for the actual costs, time, materials, storage fees, if we don't have surplus space and we have to go rent out space to store these stop logs and bracing. The way it would work is the invoices would be provided in September for the services of the previous year. At that point, we would know the actual costs, and they can reimburse us within 60 days. And then, as I stated before, your interlocal cooperative funding agreement committing the Dike District as final consideration for the handoff of the flood elements of the project, $2,189,299.36. You can ask me how they came up with that exact figure. They did some of their own analysis of the value of the elements and the personal property. That was their figure. We're happy with it. And last is the easement agreement and transfer of personal property, which was a condition of performance that you have as a matter of contract for their contribution of funds. Attached to that easement, which would be recorded with the county auditor, is the legal description of the area in which we would provide an easement. We would still own any rights, an underlying fee if we owned it in fee, and there is a right of reversion written in the easement in subsection 6. It's called a right of reentry. Should there be, heaven forbid, an attempt of FEMA to decertify the flood project as a result of inadequate maintenance, which we're doing anyway, so I think we've covered all that. And I would propose a motion, unless the council wish to break it up into each component parts, you could just move to approve all three agreements. It's a package, it's almost like an escrow. We would record the easement. Once it's recorded, we would put that auditor number or the remaining agreements, sign the other agreements. Dike District 3 has, I am told, approved the agreements to be put in final form for their signatures, and they intend to approve this in their November meeting.
All right, questions for Kevin on this agreement that he's been working on for 2 years?
So I'd actually like to recognize Kevin for his work that he's done on these agreements. They're kind of painstaking, they're kind of a little bit nitpicky at times, but your professionalism and your interest in looking out for the best interest of the citizens of Mount Vernon is greatly appreciated, and I think you've done a great job on this. I would move the adoption of all three of the interlocal agreements.
Thank you.
But again, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Second? Oh, sorry, Richard, go ahead.
Motion by Mark and a Richard by second. Okay, a motion by Mark and a second by Richard, sorry. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And again, thank you to Kevin, and also really recognizing Dyke District 3 has been a partner with the city for probably more than a decade. And the financial contributions, I think, were over 5.6 million in total over the years. So that project would not have happened without an amazing collaboration of the Dyke District 3, their commissioners, their legal counsel, and working with Kevin. So it's a celebration really for the whole community, even though we started walking on that and using it a long time ago. So thank you for that. So, all right, item L tonight is the approval of an agreement with West Publishing. Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. This might be the first time I've put an agreement like this before the City Council. Usually it's underneath the $10,000 a year mark, but what I'm asking for is we have a better deal if we commit to 36 months. Still, it's a little bit over what I call the Mendoza line, $10,000 or over, we go to City Council. Years and years ago, lawyers had to go to law libraries, go to these things called court reporters, which consolidated all these opinions of precedent. Go look at what's called black letter law, which is your statutes, the United States Code, the Revised Code of Washington. Look at these things called digest to find you which court cases may be relevant, and once you found the court case, then you would have to look at it, read it, go to this thing called shepherdize it to see if it's still good law. You'd see lawyers with all these bucks behind them. That's in the past. You don't have to do that. You can take that 3 hours you spent in the library and do legal research in 5 minutes if you have software like this. This is what we use. There's basically two out there. There's LexisNexis, there's Westlaw, it's Ford versus Chevy. It doesn't matter. You both look at it up just as efficiently, but it is a necessary, integral part of our law practice to be able to get online, find the case, see if it's good law, find cases that gave it negative treatment on a national database, looks at the statutes, invaluable. This would be for 36 months. Monthly charges of $1,523.
All right, any questions for Kevin on this?
I'll make a motion that City Council authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with Westlaw Legal Research subscription.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Melissa and a second by Juan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
That has completed our regularly scheduled agenda items. I would ask our city attorney if we would be needing an executive session tonight.
We don't.
All right, with that then we'll be adjourned at 8:40. Thank you.